Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of For Those Who Believe, this wonderful podcast about us, the Casa family, all the sons and daughters of the Casa coming together. And today, my beautiful friend Naomi Horii, all the way from Colorado. And I'm so excited because I haven't talked to you since Cafe Central, which is God, is it 5 years now? And thank you for talking to us about your experiences at the Casa. And we always thank Joao de Diaz for bringing us all together because without him saying yes to his mission, we would never have met. And you would be able to share your amazing story. I know some of it, but I'm looking forward to filling in the gaps. And also, we just start off by asking you how you actually came to hear about the Casa, because this is the amazing part of the journey that we just ended up being brought together for whatever reason to the Casa. So, how did you hear about the Casa, Naomi?
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Grainne. It's such a pleasure. The first time I went to the Casa, I had been doing some spiritual surgery, and one night I woke up and my hands were just buzzing, and I I picked up my cat and I just started letting the energy come through my hands, and he allowed it for a little bit, and then he's like, ah, and then he ran away because it was just so intense. And that was kind of the beginning of my evolution of doing that kind of healing. And then I read different books, and I was so hungry to learn more about psychic surgery. How does it work? I wanted to experience all facets of it. And then this woman was taking a group to the Casa, and I thought, well, this is perfect because the group was to study psychic surgery. And I thought, what a perfect way to experience psychic surgery and also to witness the energy of psychic surgery being done on others.
That's amazing. And then when you came with the group, had you any expectations about the Casa? Because it's just a blue and white building and it just doesn't seem like it's anything special, even though it's an amazing vortex of energy. Did you feel that? Did you experience that?
I did. I started feeling the energy before we even got there. And it was interesting because I'm the sort of person that pays more attention to the energy of things versus maybe how they look in the 3D. So, you know, someone can dress all fancy or act all nice or whatever, but I see what the energy is inside or whatever. So it didn't phase me at all. That was just this dirt road, and I think at the time, and this little blue building and things like that. And when I first got to one of the posadas, checking in before we went to the casa, I could immediately feel uh, the entities working on my liver. It was like I could feel things squishing around in my liver. I'm like, oh, this is so interesting, more distinctly than, one normally feels the energy of things. And then also, the telepathics were so strong because Abhijanya is built on natural crystal formation. So it's like an amplifier for the telepathic energies. And then I heard someone say my name, and I said, oh, did you just call my name? And she said, oh, how weird. No, I didn't, but I was thinking your name and I was telling you something in my head, but I could hear it just as clearly as if, I was talking to her on the phone or things like that. So that was such an amazing experience. Plus, all the years, the decades of healings being done in that place kind of created this base level of healing energies that were worked off of during the healings, and that was such an incredible thing to experience.
Yeah. And then you also, how many times were you in Abidjan? Because I remember seeing you numerous times. You're up in the cafe and you always seem to spend quite a bit of time there. I mean, I knew you very well in Abidjan.
Yes, I don't remember how many times I actually went, but a number of times I spent like 6 months minus 2 days there because my visa, my tourist visa, I could stay there for 6 months at a time, and I'd always book my ticket home for 2 days before that, just in case there was any delays with the flight, so I wouldn't get in trouble by overstaying my visa. So I did spend quite a lot of time there, and it was funny because people at the Casa would often think that I work there or whatever, and people in town always thought like so many people offered me jobs when I was working there, and I said, well, I can work there while I'm here, but I'm only here 6 months of the year, and they're like, oh, I thought you lived there because I just felt like I did, and it was funny because after the first time I went there, I asked my amazing astrologer, I said, can you look up the astrocartography for me for Abidjan, Brazil? And she said, Brazil? And I said, yes, I'm thinking of moving there if I can get a visa. And she looked and she said, no wonder, because Brazil for me in Abidjan, it was the energy of home. And she said I had never lived in a place where I had the astrocartography of home. So no wonder, like I was just drawn there and wanted to stay there.
Yeah, because you were really part of the landscape of Abidjan, and we all remember you just being there and smiling and beaming out the energy, and also a great asset to the energy field as well. And you actually were healed in the Casa. Can you recall that story for us?
Yes, I sat in current a number of times and meditated and I, along with everyone else who was sitting in current, would build the energy that was being used for the healings. And I had a number of psychic surgeries. I had a lot where it was invisible surgery, where um, the entities are working on you, and unless you see the energy, you may not necessarily see the entities working on you. But some people maybe felt it in their bodies. Some people maybe didn't notice anything, but the entities were working on people. And I also had a number of physical, visible psychic surgeries, which is where um, the medium would, take you up and use a scalpel or whatever kind of tools. And so I had one in my abdomen. I had the one where he scrapes your eyes. I had one where he sticks the tool up your nose, which was so painful for me. And one of my friends who worked as a volunteer for the Casa, she came by later to tell me what he had said during the surgery, which was basically that um, it was so painful because he had to go deep to pull out some of the energy, some of the bad or whatever, which she said is basically a code for cancer energy. And I think that, along with the other healers that helped me, the work that I did on myself, I think that was all part of me being alive 2 decades after getting a prognosis of a 7% chance of survival from my doctors.
That's incredible. 7% chance, and here you are decades later,
Yes.
laughing at me, as we say in Ireland. And I know that you mentioned that to me, and I was very overcome emotionally because I don't know what merits. You certainly deserved healing, but there were a lot of people who came with a lot of terminal illnesses, and many of them were healed. And the ones that weren't off, the families often ask me, why did somebody get a healing and why not? I mean, that's a question for God, really. And for whatever reason, you were needed on the planet and your time wasn't up, and you're a shining example of the power of the healing physically at the Casa. I mean, we all get spiritual healing and healing on all levels. But the physical is what we really are. Our vehicles are physical, so we do see. When I went with my sister, I thought she would be physically healed of multiple sclerosis. So, of course, when you don't see a physical healing, you think there's nothing happening. But certainly, you sitting in the current, um, you can tell us that you felt things happening in the current, because I know we all did, really, some more than others. But you sat in the current a lot.
Yes, I loved sitting in the current, and I believe too, as far as, you know, why sometimes are we healed physically, why sometimes are we not. There's so much to healing. For example, you know, everything stored in our emotional bodies contributes in some way to any physical imbalances or illness. So we have to clear those out. And then sometimes someone on a body personality level, the human being consciousness or whatever wants to say, but sometimes when you look at the soul is kind of like, actually, I want to go. So there's that piece too. I've also seen some experience of, I used to take groups occasionally to the Casa, and I would, give them the instructions. You have to stay in bed for, I forget, 24 hours or whatever after the psychic surgery. And so many people actually completely disregarded the instructions that the entities very clearly gave them. And I would get frustrated. And actually, I stopped taking groups there because it's like, why are you doing the opposite of what the entities specifically said, especially when, for example, for any medium doing a psychic surgery on someone, it takes a lot of energy for whatever medium's body, and it's very hard on a medium's body to do psychic surgery because of the force, the volume of the energy that they're channeling and stuff. And I felt very frustrated because people would understand the directions, and then I'd see them planning a trip, you know, going into the jungle or whatever immediately after surgery. And I said, do you recall that the entities told them? And they're like, oh yeah, yeah, but I feel fine. And I think that's part of a natural human, maybe almost arrogance or whatever, of deciding that they know best, and kind of doing things that are contraindicated by what was specifically suggested by the Casa or other people. And I think that's an issue too. And then another issue is that, sometimes we look at healing being a passive experience. I get healed. The entities are working on me and I'm healed. But there's so much more than that because, for example, you can send your kids to the best school ever, but if they're not going to pay attention in class, they're not going to do the homework, then what exactly are they going to get out of that school? Not as much as maybe people who study, do the homework, pay attention in lectures, things like that. So, and I think with healing, a lot of times, especially with cancer and any kind of autoimmune disease, it's an anti-self energy. So we have to go through and change our ways of thinking, our ways of acting, and stuff that go against ourselves. And that's so painful. So sometimes we may get a healing on cancer and think, oh, yeah, I don't have to do anything. But once you have the healing, part of it is you have to have it, and then because anything that you release during a healing, it comes up in your face and you feel like you're just sitting in the middle of it. But we have to address those things and let our deepest pain come up, and that's a very painful process. So I understand why right after surgery someone's like, oh yeah, I want to go this, I want to go to a disco, I want to do whatever that was contraindicated according to the entities and stuff, because we want to distract ourselves from those pains that are coming up instead of just letting ourselves be in it, feel it, process it, and then release it, and then create new ways of being. So I think that that question of, why do people heal and why do some not? It is so fascinating. And sometimes even if, say, we didn't heal in the sense of we came to heal a particular illness, but we still maybe pass away from that illness, we have to validate too, even though it may not have had the results we wanted, the physical results that we wanted, we probably released a lot of energy during those healings that we might not have to work through in another lifetime because we've managed to process that much as well.
Yeah, I understand that. It's a really deep question, and healing is a work in progress. I mean, there's no time we're not healing. Um,
Yes.
but also there has to be rules and discipline and regulation. Chico Xavier said there's three things you need for the spiritual path. The first is discipline, the second is discipline, and you guessed it, the third is discipline. And people always used to wise up and wait and hear when I said three things, they were all expecting different answers, something really magical. But it is actually, yes, you have to follow some sort of protocol for whatever reason they are given that to you. And a lot of people just collapsed within the 24 hours when they went off to do things. And many people relayed those stories of, oh, I literally didn't realize that it was even more powerful than a hospital intervention. So, whatever the spirits were doing, it was on such a high level of vibration that naturally we felt okay and we didn't feel like we were stuck in a hospital bed or it didn't feel like a hospital situation. But there were so many people healed miraculously of mind, body, and spirit. But the body healings were incredible. There was also transplants, which with stitches and no transplant drugs, and they were very well chronicled, and people still didn't believe. So I guess it's the amount of faith you bring to the table. It's interesting how we are conditioned to doubt.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes. And
uh,
so, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, that's why he did. The entity came out and did physical interventions to show the people who are doubters, really, that this is actually happening. That's what I believe they were for.
Hmm.
Physical
Hmm.
nose jobs, eye scrapings, and we were both on the end of those. And they weren't that painful, really, considering your eyeballs, are being scraped with a kitchen knife with no anesthetic and no infection.
Yes, the eyeball one wasn't at all painful. I was surprised because after the nose thing, which was excruciating, I thought, oh no, how's the eyeball thing gonna be? But and I could feel the movement on my eyes, but it wasn't painful, and I was so relieved. So,
No, it was
yeah.
miraculous because it's just the sound in my eardrum of scratching. And the second eye scraping I got, it's like I'm talking to you. I felt nothing, and everyone was laughing at me. And I was like, oh my God, why are they all laughing? I was like, I was astounded. There was no pain at all. It was like I was just having a chat. And that therein lies the miracle. I mean, I know there is a lot still going on in Abidjan. The portal is still wide open and there's a lot of interventions happening and they're with us, they travel, they don't know any borders or boundaries, we're getting helped here on wherever we are on the planet. Yeah, it's amazing. It's a work in progress. It's a phenomenal place to visit, but also they are visiting us wherever we are in the world, which is beautiful. I feel them all around me and I know that they're with you because you are now in Colorado performing, and we were talking about it before we came on air, that you are up there just being yourself, giving it. It's hard to perform in front of people, but I see you, and I think it's amazing. You really have been blossoming, you
Oh,
know.
Thank you. And that means so much coming from you, who you are as a soul with so much light, as well as, having performed as a comedian in in New York and just making so many people laugh and smile who came to your Cafe Central and Abajania and stuff. You are such a vessel of light and laughter. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, and I also loved doing the work in the current rooms. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, you're a great performer," and I said, "Well, at some stage they stopped my ego getting involved in the work, and it was coming through me rather than from me, and I really learned how to surrender into the whole process, which is something that you can spend your whole life and not know how to surrender. It's tough as nails because we don't want to let go, but it's hard to let them control you because you know that they're a benevolent force and that they really want the best for you. So whatever was coming through me was from God. And that
Yes.
was a surprise to me because I never thought in all my life I'd be a vessel for the God consciousness because I was really wild and crazy and used a lot of substances. And, suddenly I go to Abidjan and there's a whole world waiting for me that's pure and organic and real, my real life, the real part of me that's was subdued by all of these substances that were keeping my light down. So we were filled with light, and no matter where we are in the world, we need to multiply that light, no matter how hard it is. We need to serve each other, and serve God. And that's the beauty of Abidjan. That's where we learned. It was a real school of life, and we were fortunate to be there together, and to meet the people. It felt like a reunion. I met people and I was saying, welcome back. And they were like, I've never been here before. I'm like,
Yes, I definitely I met so many people that I love dearly to this day and who I do consider part of my soul family. I reconnected with so many people that I had other lifetimes with, including a couple that I had challenging lifetimes with, but was able to heal those lifetimes, by reconnecting with them. And but mostly it just felt like, oh, there you are, even though it was the first time I'd seen them this lifetime. It was gorgeous.
it's amazing how we are still all connected on that level.
Yes. And I love too how I learned so much or just reinforced what I knew about